back. I'm glad you're joining us again. If you are on YouTube, you notice that we have a new special guest on the show. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, I encourage you to hop on YouTube if you can. So today we have one of my friends who I look up to, Crystal Brown, on this show. Some of you may recognize her if you take your children to the Mother's Day Out program here in town. So Crystal, welcome.
Thank you.
Can you tell us about yourself? I know I just kind of spoiled it a little.
No, it's good. It's good. My name is Crystal Brown. I'm from Paris. I've lived here my whole life. And I am married to Bronson Brown, and we have 5 children, and we have a baby on the way. So that's number 6.
Yay.
Cannon is our oldest, and he's 11, just turned 11. And then Kaya is 9. I have to think about their ages. Cohen is 7. And then Cage is 5, and Creed is 1.
Yay. And when's your due date?
My due date is in 3 weeks, March 28th.
3 weeks. Yes. Oh my goodness. So I brought Crystal on the show. I asked her if she would come share with us about biblical motherhood because she has her 6th baby on the way. And she is such an example of what a godly mom looks like. And I know you probably are like, why is she saying that? But you are, and I look up to you. So yes, this topic, I feel like talking about what it's like to be a mom. If you are a mom and you're listening, you know that, yeah, being a mom is hard. If you have 1 child or 6 or 10, it can be hard. Or maybe you're listening and thinking, well, this topic doesn't pertain to me, but it does because you have a mom, or maybe your wife is a mom. This topic is something that I think we can all glean from, especially when we want to know how should motherhood look. So let's jump into it. So I already said being a mom is hard. I think every mom can attest to that to some degree. So when do we find time to read our Bibles? When do we find time to, spend time with the Lord? I think of before I was a mom, and I only have 2 children right now. Mm-hmm. I remember waking up with my coffee in my snuggly chair, opening up my Bible, grabbing my highlighters and thinking, oh, I'm going to read for 45 minutes uninterrupted.
Yeah. Nice. It is nice.
And that's not really the case anymore being a mom.
Right.
So how do you spend time with the Lord now?
Honestly, I think this is the question of all questions because you're right. Whenever you're you're no kids in the house. I mean, you can make everything the way you want it to be. You can take as much time as you want. You can put on some worship music, start out like that. And that's really how I used to be. And I treasured that time with just being able to, get my heart right and then open the word and then really get into that, write in my journal, take all the notes all the time. And then, 1 child, it changes. And then you have another one and it changes again. And so the way that I guess I've allowed God to really work on me is just to be in the season that I'm in, that everything is a different season. And at first that was a struggle because I wanted it to be the way it always had been. And I craved that time. And I remember I felt like a failure. Yeah. I felt like, why can I not make this happen? And I'm not saying that I don't have time but it looks so much different. So now where, if I don't, I might wake up early and say, hey, I'm going to spend, an hour, and then a baby wakes up.
Yeah.
And you've spent 15 minutes and you view that as okay, well, now I've been interrupted and I've failed and I've let God down. And that is where I got stuck for a while. I think it was after probably I had my 3rd kid. I was stuck in going, I just felt like all the time I was just letting God down because I couldn't figure out how to make it work. How do I do this without being interrupted? And I need to get up earlier. I need to stay up later. I need to do this. And it was all this pressure. And then I don't know, really, probably through prayer of just saying, I need your guidance. I need your help. It just hit me that, what, I need to just be in the season and not look at them as an interruption. And there have been mornings or evenings where I'm reading my Bible and my kids are all around me. It's not quiet. I mean, I just open it up and like they're playing or doing whatever. And I don't have that quiet time, but it's time. And it's time with him. And honestly, they're not interrupting me. And there's times where they'll be like, Mom, what are you reading?
Yeah.
And that's an opportunity to tell them, hey, you know, I'm reading this. And then it kind of goes from there. And you never know where it's going to go or what questions are going to be asked, or if I'm going to be like, wait, what? What are you asking that for? So really for me, it's a season. And it's not always a perfect quiet time. It might be outside while they're playing, and I just sit there and look around and just thank him for, you know, what he's given me. And that's still time with him. I mean, so it's just like every chance I get, I just have to make it in the daily. So it's different.
I love that you said to not look at your children as interruptions. Really, the Bible says that they're blessings to us. So in our own life, when we think, oh, I only got 15 minutes in the word today, or 15 minutes praying, or 15 minutes of quiet, maybe the whole day, but that's not actually an interruption. That's the season that God has called us to. I love that perspective. Also, just to even shift the conversation to it's not only the season, but it's our primary focus.
It is.
So in that, how would you encourage someone to look at their children and their home and their spouse as, hey, this is your mission field?
Yeah, it really is. And that is, I guess that's how I stay grounded in what I'm doing. And it's hard and it's a struggle. And I don't want any of this to sound like I have it all together, because I'm so far from it. I think every, moment I'm learning. But I feel like my joy is to be a mom. I mean, and that's not always the case. Like every mom is different. And that's why we get stuck in these comparisons of, I wish I was like that, or I'm just not wired like that. But God doesn't want us to stay there either. And so I think that realize, like you said, that they are blessings, and that honestly, church teaches them, of course, having them in church, that will teach your children about who Jesus is. But as a mom, as a dad, that is our role. Like God calls us to do that. And so little moments that we take of just going, although, yes, you are interrupting me right now, but instead of looking at it like that, like they can teach us. I mean, my kids will ask questions about stuff or give me a perspective about something that I'm just like, wow, like that just taught me. And I stop and I'm like, God, thank you for that, because I needed that. I needed to go, there's no reason to be stressed right now. Like it's good. So I think just keeping that on the forefront of just always remembering, like at one point you were probably praying for the kids.
Yeah.
Like you're praying for the kids and the children and everything. And so when you're sitting in the chaos, you just have to go, this is it, so it's easier sometimes than others.
When, everyone's just pooped in their diaper or thrown up.
Yeah. Can't get out of the house. You got somewhere to be. Yes.
Last week, Sophie and Sam were both throwing up, and I had to just tell myself, like, this is just part of it.
It is.
And they're going to be better next week. And they are.
Yeah.
So just embracing that. I know. Right.
Tough.
One thing that you said that I would love if you could elaborate on is not to compare yourself to the other moms around you. It's so easy to think like, wow, like when I look at you, wow, Crystal's about to have her 6th child and she's still so composed and not crazy like I have 2, and I feel like I'm crazy. So what would you say to somebody who may be thinking, I just wish I was like so-and-so? Yeah. They just parent so much better than me.
Yeah, I think really that it's hard because social media makes it really hard. Because you look and you see and you go, oh, I feel like I should be doing this with my kid or this with, but that's the highlights of life. Like if I posted everything that was the great part of our day, then I feel like it could be perceived as, oh my goodness, like so awesome. But if I posted the throwing up or the, wet the bed or dumped the toys out or dumped the cereal out. Like if you post all of that, then people realize, hey, wow, that's real. And we get stuck comparing ourselves and then we're discontent. We're not content anymore. I mean, we're not okay with the mom that we are. We're not okay with the family God has given us. And I think that's what I think is like, you said earlier about it doesn't matter if you have one kid or six kids. Like God just wired me for six kids, whereas he might not have wired someone else like that. And it's okay to go, I struggle with one, whereas I'm like, I struggle with six. I'm probably going to struggle with six, because I think no matter what, like, it's just how he created us, and we're all different, and he created us differently. And when we remember that and know, like, I don't know, that to me, that is where you just kind of stay grounded of, all right, I'm going to be content with how God wired me. And I'm not, some people like, I love being outside. I personally could be outside all day. Well, my kids naturally love being outside because we're outside.
Yeah.
Well, that might not be for someone else. And that doesn't mean that like you're a horrible mom because you don't have your kids outside. That's just, we're just wired differently. And so I personally love that, whereas someone else might not, but they can still be a great mom.
Yeah.
So
yeah. In motherhood, when we're so busy with our kids, no matter what number of children you may have, or even ages, you never like graduate from being a mom.
No.
Right? I'm in my late 20s and I still stop by my parents' house and then like get groceries out of the pantry. So like, hey, okay, bye. So somebody could be listening and it's a different season for you, but you're still a mom, no matter what age that is. So in life, when things feel chaotic with your 2-year-old or your 10-year-old or your 20-year-old, what are some things that we need to understand should always be a priority in our life?
I wrote a few of these down actually I'm going to look and make sure I don't want to miss anything that I had put. I think connection is huge. I try, and it's hard because you get busy. And, there's always a to-do list. And no matter what stage of motherhood you're in, whether it's the newborn or it's, your kids are out of the house, like there's always a to-do list. There's a new to-do list. And you think like, oh, the next season of life.
Yeah.
Like in it'll be better then. And if we continue to live like that, then we're missing where we're at. And so, connection for me is huge. Like I love connecting with my parents still. Like you said, when you go home, and so like, I'm 38 and it's like, I love going home and getting the hug or, just being in the safe place of being home. And, I don't know that ever changes. And so for my kids, that's what I want to connect with them every single day. I want to look them in the eye. I want to have a conversation. And, my 11-year-old, he's my oldest right now, and he's kind of quirky and just that age of, I don't know, he cracks me up. It's funny, sometimes inappropriately funny, where you're just like, what are you doing right now? But I think it's important to meet him there, like I don't want to like hinder that where I'm like, okay, stop. Like that's not funny. So I try to just connect. That's huge. And then praying with them. Praying from when they're young, because I've talked to so many people who, they're like, oh, I didn't even start praying with my kids until they were in junior high, or I've never even prayed with my kids, but praying out loud with them just so they hear it, because, I can't imagine walking in with him at 11 and going, hey, we're going to pray. I would, I know that has to happen sometimes, but it's just part of kind of what we've done. And, there's nights where they've already fallen asleep and I don't get to, or mornings or whenever, it doesn't have to only be at night, but prayer is a huge priority. Just to know my mom's praying for me, even if they're asleep already and, you're praying over them, or if they're gone, and just talking to them about what you pray for them is, that's a big deal. I told Cannon the other day, because he is my oldest, so he does talk more about stuff. And I had told him, he said something about us getting married or something. And I was like, I pray for your spouse all the time. And he goes, you pray for my wife? And then of course he's like, well, I hope you're praying for her, let
me tell you what
he wants me to pray. And I said, that's not how it works, buddy. But it's funny, and I think it's important that he knows, I'm praying for every aspect of your life. And then laughter with your kids, because, that is, we're called to be joyful and to have that joy. And you can, I mean, I'm guilty of it where I'm just like, why am I not smiling or laughing right now when you're at home? Because there's everything going on. And so I really, I like to bring that in and just to laugh at them when sometimes it's not really that funny, but you know, and then sometimes it is. Like when they're little, they'll keep you laughing all the time. That's not a problem. So I think that's a big part of connecting with them and just saying yes to laugh. Like let's make it a priority to laugh together and to play together. And so, and I think, and then just, of course, you know, the main thing is talking to them about Jesus in every little thing. And it doesn't look a certain way. It's not like I sit them at a table and go, oh, let's all sit around and, you know, have our devotional time, because I've tried it. I mean, I've tried tons of ways to like incorporate what does this look like. And every time, typically I've ended and been like, what in the world just happened? Like, it's really hard when you have a 1-year-old and then you have this kid and trying to find balance for that. But I just think you just take those little opportunities just to go, oh my goodness. Like the other night, my Cage, he's 5 and he said, oh Mom, look at the sky. Cause it was like pink and purple, blue clouds, you know, like just real pretty. And I said, oh my goodness, Cage. I said, God creates the most beautiful things. And you know, that's so simple and nothing like extraordinary. Doesn't make me go, oh, you're such a good mom, you know? But he was like, he does. And I was like, you know, that's important for him. So that's, for me, that's the priorities that I say yes to, are just those little things and taking those moments when life is not always easy.
And everything that you just said, I feel like falls under a category of time. Spend time.
Yeah.
Spend time connecting and laughing and pouring in and talking about Jesus. When we say though, hey, everyone, spend time with your kids, we don't have the same power that God has to be multiple places at multiple times. So that requires saying no to other things. Friendships may not look the same, or going out and going on all these dates with your spouse may not look the same as it did before. So in saying all of that, what are some ways that we can spend time with our kids, make them a priority, but understand I'm going to say yes to other things too, like my spouse, for instance? What are some ways that you put your marriage first?
Yeah. And that's also one of those season things for us, you know, because it's hard to find someone to watch 5 kids at a time. Although we have great, I mean, his parents are great. My parents are great. So that's a plus. You know, we live here locally. We have a lot of family. But still, even at that, you know, getting that time together is super important. I mean, your marriage comes first. If your marriage is suffering, your kids are going to suffer. And I know, you know, like, we've actually been in a tougher, you know, we've been in a tough season of trying to make that work, probably because we have a 1-year-old. And, you know, that first year is transition. And it doesn't matter how many kids you have. The first baby is transition, but every child after there's a new transition. Well, now we're fixing to enter into another first. And so I think with every time you just have to refocus. And our date nights definitely do not look like they used to look. You know, sometimes we take a kid with us, and I know that's not as great. It sounds like, well, that's not a date night if you have a kid with you. But when you have multiple kids, then it is like, it's a date night because we can actually talk. We can talk with the kid, but we still make time for just us. You know, whether that's, I mean, sometimes it's very short. And it is different, but I tell myself all the time, like, you know, as long as we're still connected and we're making each other a priority, then there'll be a time where it's all us again.
Yeah.
I mean, we dated for 7 years and then we were married. And so, you know, we had a lot of us time and time together. And I know we still need that. And we know when we need that, like when we're like, okay, this is not looking good. Like we need to refocus. And, you know, it can be toxic for your kids to see their parents just not jiving. So we like to kind of like, sometimes you just have to step back and go, wow, we need to connect. Like we need time away, and we'll get our parents to watch the kids and go for at least a night.
I was thinking about this same situation with what we talked about at the beginning about spending time with God and how, you may get 15 minutes of communication and then, oh, I got interrupted. But each day we should approach it in the same way with our spouse too. Oh, let's talk for 15 minutes. Oh, a child's coming.
Right.
But instead of seeing it how we talked about with God as an interruption, oh, one of our blessings is coming, And I know it's easier said than done.
It is, yeah.
But just thinking, I have some friends who have encouraged me lately about how each day they're just trying to make their marriage a priority, even when their kids are there. Mm-hmm. So like, hey, how can we, instead of focusing on the chaos that may be happening, how can we just talk about how was your day?
Yeah.
And I love what you're saying of the date. The date may not look like a fancy dress with, a $50 steak sitting in front of you that you might have had before you had kids. But that's okay. It's the season that you're in. Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah, it's a hard adjustment though. It is, because you want, you crave those moments of, and I will say one of the things that we did that I wish we wouldn't have is, and I think it's easy for any parent, but you do start putting your kids, I mean, they need more, they want you more. There's a constant something. And so especially for a mom, like it's always, Mom, can I have this? Mom, can you do this? Mom, and so your husband might be telling you something, and then here comes in this child that needs you, and you're like, and then the frustration can come out on your spouse because you're not going to get frustrated with your, kid at that point. And so I think just to say, hold on, me and Dad are talking, and we have to do that sometimes, where we don't want to constantly be like, okay, go, but I think it's okay for them to know, like, we have to have our time too. Mm-hmm. And I have some friends of ours, and they talk about that. They have like a table time, and if they're at that table, then it's no one can come to the table.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I thought that was good. We're not to that point yet, but I thought it was really good. I'm like, I don't know what our kids would do if we were like, you can't come to the table.
Yeah.
They'd be like, what is going on? So, but yeah, saying yes to your spouse is important, even when you have a whole lot going on. He's way better about that than I am, because I'm like, no, we have and he's, so I have to tell myself just, we can do this. We can make it work.
Yeah.
So,
would you say that that's the same with your other relationships too? Obviously spending time with God and spending time with your spouse and children, but what about, your lifelong friend who wants to grab coffee?
Yeah, that's tough. Friendships are, and luckily, like I have some great friends who are very understanding, who love my kids the way, I love my kids. But I found that it's easier to connect with people who already have kids.
Yeah,
of course. So, people who don't are like, wait, what is going on around here? But yeah, it's hard to make time. Friendship is hard. Although I still have great friends, just having that time, because you kind of boot it down the list.
Yeah. And understand too, it's seasons.
Yeah.
I love what you're saying about, as a mom, reaching out to other moms.
Yeah.
Who can understand, like, oh, sorry, I'm going to be late. Someone just pooped in my car.
Yeah. Yeah. My house is a mess. You can stop by if you want, but the house is a mess. So yeah, I think just getting those people that understand you, that's important to make you feel like you're normal and not going nuts.
So what would you say to someone who may be listening, who maybe they're pregnant for the first time, or they're not a mom yet? What would you say, maybe something that you wish that you would have thought about before you were a mom, or wish some advice that you would have had when you started your motherhood journey?
There's so many different things. And I had a lot of people that gave me a lot of good advice. Of course, you always have people that tell you, like, the dishes will be there, the laundry will be there. And I am very, like, I like to be on top of things. I used to like to be on top of things. I don't really, at this point, I'm just like, I'm not on top of things. But I think that was great advice given, but I don't know that I took that at the beginning the way that I do now. I do think that in looking at, like, my oldest, I realized how fast 11 years, and that's just 11 years. You hear that all the time of, well, it'll pass by so quickly. And I watch him and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's passing by so quickly. And so with each child, I think that perspective changes to go, you know what, you're right. The dishes will be there and they're going to be there tomorrow, but I can't just let them go because then, you have to eventually do that. So I think that is good advice to know that you can't play all day. Obviously, there are things that we have to do. But you can stop for 5 minutes. And really, that's normally all it takes, is to watch for 5 minutes or, go do this for 5 minutes. And then you can go back and do your stuff. And I think I used to try to get everything done, then have time to go and make that connection with my kid. And I've found that if I connect with them first, then typically it works out better. So I guess that would be some advice. And then, I don't know, just whatever type of mom you want to become, you just have to say yes to things that help you get there and no to things that don't. And that's hard because there's things that I love that I've just had to say, sorry, I just can't do that anymore. And it's just because it's brought out, I guess, irritability towards my kids, or I'm dragging them here and there just because I'm said yes to something that I might love, but it's just not getting me to that place where I want to be. And so then you have to backtrack and go, oh no. So it's okay to say no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, you mentioned church earlier, in that, would you agree that that's one thing that we should strive to say yes to with having so many kids? I mean, you do. I have 2, and we went last night to a Wednesday service, and I left with a screaming child and thought, oh, I'm not coming next week,
Yeah.
But that is something that they can hear the word of God and be in community with other believers. I would say that that's one thing that my family tries to say yes to.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I think that church is a definite yes. I think kids need to know it's a priority. They need to understand that. I guess like you said, getting there. And then as a mom, when you're there and you have to leave or you have to step outside with your kid and you feel like, well, I'm missing, like, I'm not even getting to worship, or I'm not even, hearing the word. And so the frustration level can build, and then you think it's not even worth it, but it is. Every single time it's going to be worth it, no matter what. So yeah, church would be a priority to have your kids in there. And they make friends, and, just building that foundation, that solid foundation for them. And I know I've talked a lot about talking to them at home about that, and that is important, but it takes a village for your kids. And there will be a time, like right now, mine are still young enough where they're willing to sit down and chill and listen to mom, but there will be a time where their friends take that place. And I want them to know, like, you got to pick good friends and, to be surrounded by that community of people who believe like they believe. So yes, church is a priority. I think you can say yes to too much sometimes.
Serving in too many areas.
Yes. And you get to where you're just, yes, I'll do. And then that can neglect your children. So, yeah. And I think I've had to battle that just a little bit of knowing when to say yes, because I love to serve and I love Jesus and I want to do all the things.
Yeah.
But, sometimes you just have to say no to certain things. But being in church and getting them there is always a yes.
Showing up, they may not have shoes on.
They might not have shoes on. That is for sure.
Maybe we didn't brush their teeth, but we're here.
Yes, for sure.
So in wrapping up, was there Bible verses that you had that you wanted to share, or principles, or?
Yeah, actually, there's a couple of things. The John 15:5, and it's, I think, just something that I always come back to, because motherhood is hard, and there is no way that it can be done without being connected to him. And so you'll be empty, and there will be seasons of that for sure. But, and it's, I'm the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, then you will bear much fruit. And apart from me, you can do nothing. And the way I look at that, and I guess the way that gets to me so much, is that there's fruit in my kids. Like my fruit is them. And if I'm empty and if I'm not connected to Jesus, then I can't passionately show them who he is. So that's a scripture that I just like constantly, I'm like, I have to connect with him. And that has to be a priority for me as a mom, that way that they learn. And obviously, you know, I mean, in Proverbs, it talks about, you know, train them up and when they're young, and then when they're older, they will not depart from that. And that's something you think about, because who knows, like, I don't know what's in store for my kids. I don't know the challenges that they're going to face. But I do know what God promises. And he promises that if I am his, and that if I am seeking him and, you know, just relying on him, trusting him, building my faith in him, then his promises will remain. So you just have to trust, like, he loves your kids more than you do. And that is unimaginable to me. And then the last one, which is kind of a different one, but it's something that when the days are hard and I'm like, oh my goodness, how are we going to do this? Is Isaiah 66:13. And it's as a mother comforts her child, I will comfort you. And I guess that one for me is just, I know how much I love my kids. And it's just like, you know, anything at any age, no matter what. I mean, you could talk to parents who have kids who are 60 or, you know, 50, and they will comfort their kid. When their kid hurts, they hurt, and they run to them and they wrap their arms around them, or whatever your form of comfort is. And so I know that, like, as a mom, that shows me like God's love for me, because we can forget sometimes that, like, we need love too. You know, we give out all the love and all the comfort, but just to know how much he loves us and treasures us and has given us a huge role of just taking our kids and leading them to Jesus and into the world, and, you know. So
I love that. I'm just thinking about how a mom could be listening in any season with an adult child or a newborn. And like you said, we don't know what is in store for our children, but God does. And he's there to comfort us in it. We're not alone. You know, we're not just thrown out. Okay, figure this out. No, he's always with us. We have the word to abide in. So I love all of that so much. I'm going to go back and take notes. Thank you for joining us today. So much good stuff. If you guys are listening on YouTube, subscribe to the channel and also leave a comment. Maybe we can get Crystal back on the show to answer your questions. If you're listening on a podcast platform, share this with your friends. And again, thank you, Crystal.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you guys next week. Bye.